Hi. We're very familiar with the term tragedy of the commons in terms of our public spaces as it pertains to the environment. But I think an area that we neglect is the tragedy of the commons in our public discourse, our public spaces as it pertains to liberty, right? So liberty, someone said, is the ability to do the right thing. And I think what we're seeing in public society here in the States is that a lot of people are choosing not to do the right thing because they can. Let me tell you a story to illustrate this point. One of my neighbors is truly one of the most capable women I know. She comes from old money. She uses her privilege to live a very good life. Everything the woman does is excellent. And believe you me, she doesn't need any support of any kind. And yet she was telling us some time ago that she was going to be flying with her dog to X place. And I asked how that was going to work. And she said, oh, well, I got a note from the doctor that I need a support animal. And I thought that was very clever, and we all laughed. But on further thought, and later relaying the story to my mother, who then said, oh, that's a very American thing to do, I thought that maybe it is a pity that my highly privileged, excellent, capable neighbor is sort of abusing the system on a technicality to make it easier for herself. Because what happens, if everyone does that, in the end, we have to have more regulations to control these kind of things. And that's a great pity, because those who actually need them, they don't need the extra regulations, right? So the fact that we have this loophole whereby you can get a note from your doctor to have a support animal to take on the flight, that's a very good thing. But if everyone starts using that and finding a doctor that's willing to write that note, we destroy that common, right? So that's an example of a tragedy of a common, perfectly legal, and yet why did she feel so comfortable to do that? Why is society replete with examples of people abusing their freedom to make life easier for them or to gain a little edge over someone else? And I think in the States in particular, I mean, this happens everywhere in the world, but in the States it's particularly sad because that's not how this society is supposed to function. And that's not how this society will function most beautifully. But how did we get here? I think it has a lot to do with how extremely mobile this society is. So, because we are so wedded to our careers here, we have no problem saying goodbye to our communities and families to move across the country for a job, right? I had to move here for my job, is a frequent thing we hear. And then 3 years later, move to another city, and la 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 la. But what happens is relationships don't form in a way that keeps a certain social order. Now that's the magic here in the States, that you can be anything you want to be, and you can be anyone because there's no one over you. There's no societal structure pressuring to be something that you don't want to be. The downside of that is that a certain chaos creeps in. We feel free to cheat the system just a little bit as long as we get away with it. In older cultures that are more cohesive, there's a lot of social pressure to do the right thing, to do the decent thing, even if there isn't a rule for it. The thing is about these easygoing transitions, right? America's very easygoing, and again, one of the reasons is because there's sort of no overarching social rules. But these easygoing transitions from one place to another, from one system to another, they don't nurture our souls. And what ends up happening is we scoop by on technicalities. And I've often wondered why the US is so litigious as a society and why there's such an over-reliance on the court systems. But it does make sense, because if your community doesn't have the permission to keep you accountable, then of course you're going to have to take it to the law. And what is the law? Well, it's regulation, right? And we're going to have to invite more and more regulation. If we insist on this anonymous, I get to do it my way, and I'll scoop by on a technicality. So that is something here in the States that I think we need to change. We need to stop honoring the pathology of just getting my way and doing it my own way and start to honor those who live decent lives and who choose to do things the right way, even if it isn't super convenient or if it doesn't bring financial gain in the short term, right? What we need to have again here in the States is this feeling of being participants in one big organism or system wherein we do have individual freedoms, but we're going to honor once again doing what is wise, doing what is right, and not taking every chance we can get, every freedom that we can get to get ahead, thereby destroying this public space of liberty that we're all supposed to be able to enjoy. And that is the tragedy of the commons as applied to our public space here in the States. So I hope that we each think about how we participate here in the States particularly, where we do have these freedoms, and we don't want to invite more regulation just because each of us chooses to cheat the system as much as we can. Thanks.